Hey everyone, my name's Austin, also known as Mad Gigabit. Now, you clicked on this title because you want to see how to get Comcast 10 gig internet service. And while it is doable, I want to preface this saying that it is only qualified for certain individuals in certain areas, and that it's technically not a full 10 gig, but it is a 10 gig port. Now, let's get into a little bit about how and why Comcast does this. So, as you see here, this is a speed test. Now, granted, it is an Ookla test. It is 10 gig. Now, let's look at the providers who all have 10 gig. You have AT&T offering it on the business side. They're currently offering 5 gig on the residential side. You have Google Fiber doing 2 gig right now. And you also have Windstream coming out doing 2 gig over broadband, still fiber, but they call it broadband if it's not like dedicated, it's shared. You have a lot of companies that are coming out and offering multi-gig service, and Comcast has always been the ones to, well, we were the first. They basically came out with a plan called Gigabit Pro. Gigabit Pro, also known as Gigabit X6, started as a symmetrical 2 gig fiber service. You would have 2 gig down, 2 gig up, which I had. I had the 2 gig service, and then they go, and it was later that year when AT&T offered 2 gig service to the home that Comcast goes, hey, it's February, we're going to up it to 3 gig. Or no, they came out with 2 gig, and so yeah, Comcast goes, well, let's just change it to 3 gig. So we had 3 gig symmetrical. Well, then AT&T comes out about a year later saying, hey, we're doing 5 gig to the home now. So what does Comcast do? They offer 6 gig symmetrical. They always up it by 1 gig. It's horrible marketing, but that's what they do. Basically what it is you have a dedicated wavelength service, what they call the Metro E network. It's a 10 gig port. You get 10 gigs, and then the router that they give you, which we will come back to, which is this is the Juniper ACX 2100. It's 10 gigs to there. And then they changed the software in a very minuscule way to police it down to 6 gig. So what exactly is the Comcast Metro E network? So basically, this is the fiber network. It's not to scale, but this is roughly what it looks like of the Comcast internet. You start up in Seattle, and there's a fiber ring that goes down to Sacramento, out to Salt Lake City, back up to Seattle, out to Spokane. Same down into LA, Salt Lake City, Houston, Denver, Nashville, Chicago, Minnie, Detroit. You just start naming them. I mean, they have a lot of cities down in Florida. Florida is basically completely covered by Comcast. And then you have your fiber ring going from Atlanta, Nashville to Pittsburgh up into Ashburn, which is Washington, D.C., and then up into the Northeast and parts of Canada. So basically what this is it's fiber optic. This is their 100 gig network, and it's DWDM. I'm not going to get into what DWDM, but basically what it is you get a specific frequency on the backbone, and you set up listening ports to say, hey, I'm on this channel, and you can communicate. Great technology. It's definitely really nice of technology. But what happens is that they want to start to compete with some of these other providers and carriers like AT&T, Google Fiber and stuff. So what they started doing is they started branching out and starting to offer these to the residential customers. Okay, no issues. It's like $330 a month, which some may be like, that's a lot for internet. When you get to business, the minimum bill is usually around $1,200 to $1,400 for like a 1 or 2 gig service. So this is not bad. Then what they basically do is they have a thing called a MUX, which basically it's a breakout. One fiber comes in here and splits it off into all these usables. Basically just gets you connected into the fiber. And then, for example, you'll use something like this. This is a tunable transceiver. As you can see, this is not Ethernet. This is actually SFP+, which is a special connector used for fiber optic. So now what basically you have going on is Comcast takes this and they deliver it to the customer. Now, Comcast, it varies per region, but they usually cover around $6,000 to $8,000 of installation cost. That's not much. Spectrum does $100,000 per customer. Spectrum will pay out of pocket $100,000 just to get you connected to their fiber network. Comcast is only $6,000 to $8,000. Typically, you have to be within 12 to 1,400 feet of what they call MUX or something similar to this, a breakout box. And then basically you have to call in, say, hey, I would like your fiber optic Gigabit Pro service. Can I speak to that team? When you speak to support, they're probably going to try to send you to business, do all this. It's called the Gigabit Pro team or the Metro E team. You call them, they see if you are qualified through the maps. If you are, then they'll send out a site survey or a tabletop survey, what they call. Guy comes out, takes photos, says, there's the fiber. You're good. And then they basically draw up all the permits needed, find a local contractor, start running it, and finally you get to installation day. Basically, they bring the fiber in, they spool it around, they tie it off, they splice it with this $30,000 to $40,000 piece of equipment here, and it turns it into usable fiber. And what it does is when turn-up day occurs, you're given one of these Junipers. It runs basically the radius system. It has your two VLANs with your static IPs. They'll come in on this very far right one. They'll hand this off. They'll give you something like this. One of these SFPs, they go in and you can connect it into a MikroTik, a Ubiquiti, a Cisco, whatever type of router you have. And then they activate, I believe it's this Ethernet port right here. And what this Ethernet port does is it gives you a 1 gig handoff to your own Netgear router. I mean, they give you a Netgear R8000 or 6000. It's like a cheap $100 Wi-Fi router. And they say, okay, you're good to go. So they also do an RFC 2544 test, which basically pushes the full bandwidth that you're allocated. They have Gigabit X3, which is 3 gig symmetrical in some markets. They also have Gigabit X6, which is 6 gig symmetrical in some markets. It's very market dependent. But basically, you have to call in, you have to talk to them and say, hey, I want your fiber. What do I got to do? And then you got to jump through the hoops. It's honestly not too bad. For a home lab user, someone who's just, maybe you're running a game server for themselves, a Plex server, doing a lot of downloads, stuff like that, that's fine. They do run into issues. They won't give you more than one static IP per interface. You get two, one for the 1 gig and one for the 10 gig handoff. They won't BGP if you fight them for it. They just terminate your service. They won't do reverse DNS. I mean, they will for like mail servers if you ask nicely and they don't catch that you're a residential account, but typically they won't do that. Anything involving enterprise, business, anything like that, or if they even get the hinkling that you're using it for like hosting to make money, they'll terminate your service. But if you're typically just using it for what it is sold for, it's not bad. Now, I say what it's sold for. I use the analogy of this. Let's say you go to a car dealership. This case would be Comcast. Say, hey, I like that McLaren that you got sitting there. And they haggle the price down with you. You say, yeah, okay, I can sell that to you. And you sign the title over and everything, and they hand you the keys. Boom. You're like, I got me a race car. Well, then all of a sudden the dealership, or in this case Comcast, goes, okay, you got this sports car. You got this very, very nice sports car. You can't go over 60 miles per hour. You're like, but I own it. I just paid for it. It can do it. It can do it more. Yeah, well, you can't you can't take it out onto a racetrack. Even though we just sold you it, we're going to control what you can and can't do with it. In this case, you cannot make any sorts of money whatsoever with the service. And again, if they get the hinkling, they send you a termination letter, say nope. So overall, it's not bad. It's definitely worth it if you want super fast download speeds and upload speeds. It's really nice. It's really reliable and dedicated. But just beware of what I have said about the residential versus business. Again, be sure to subscribe, like, comment any questions, and see you guys in the next video.